Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Wednesday, August 12th, 2026, and you're listening to Alex's News. It is going to be a warm day in Riverside, with a high of 89.4 degrees and a low of 70.3 degrees. Please stay hydrated if you are spending time outdoors. Since it is International Youth Day, it is a great time to reflect on the future. On the show today, we are investigating why Immigration and Customs Enforcement is dedicating millions toward the procurement of electroshock gloves. We are also analyzing the legal changes in California that now permit electronic recordings in civil courtrooms. Beyond these reports, we have several other stories to cover to ensure you are fully informed. All of this and more on Alex's News. Let's get started. Good morning, everyone. We're following a story about new equipment that federal immigration officers may soon carry. It's raising real concerns. Ethan, what exactly is ICE planning to buy?
Good morning, Grace. As of today, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement is planning a major investment in electroshock gloves. These are designed to subdue people who resist officers. According to the Associated Press, El País, News Corp, and WFMZ-TV, the Department of Homeland Security has published a procurement notice. It signals a plan to spend between $10 million and $20 million.
That's a wide range. How many gloves are we talking about, and by when?
The notice points to acquiring thousands of these devices with a target date of March 2027, so that's roughly 7 months out from where we stand today. The scale here is what caught reporters' attention. This isn't a small pilot program. It's a fleet-wide push to put a new tool into officers' hands across the agency.
So what do these gloves actually do? Walk me through the technology.
They're called GLOVE, which stands for Generated Low Output Voltage Emitter. They're made by Compliant Technologies LLC, a company based in Lexington, Kentucky. At a glance, they look like ordinary patrol gloves, but they have a switch that turns on an electrical mode. To deliver a shock, the gloves have to touch a person's skin directly. They don't work through clothing or hair.
How strong is the jolt? Is there a safety limit?
According to technical data in the user manual, the gloves can deliver a maximum voltage of up to 380 volts. The manufacturer suggests a usage limit of 15 seconds. They also recommend using no more than 2 gloves on one subject at a time. But there's a caveat, Grace. They can be used as necessary until control is gained if the public or officers are in danger.
380 volts sounds serious. What does it actually feel like?
John Peters, president of the Institute for the Prevention of In-Custody Deaths, described it for reporters. He called the sensation, quote, immediate and sharp, end quote. He compared it to a bee sting. The idea, he said, is to distract the person and gain compliance within seconds. So the goal is a quick jolt of pain rather than a prolonged shock.
Which officers would carry these? Not everyone at ICE, I assume.
That's right. ICE intends to distribute the GLOVE devices to 2 primary units. The first is Homeland Security Investigations, known as HSI. The second is Enforcement and Removal Operations, or ERO. And ERO is the key one here, because that's the unit responsible for immigration arrests and detentions. So these gloves would land squarely in day-to-day enforcement work.
When and where would agents actually use them?
The devices are meant for a range of scenarios. That includes removing uncooperative people from houses or vehicles. It also covers managing inmates in jail or during transport, especially those threatening officers or harming themselves. Compliant Technologies calls this a less lethal option. And they note it can operate at distances of up to 3 meters, which the company says matters a great deal.
Why does that 3-meter range matter so much to them?
The company points to a striking statistic. They say 70% of officers killed by gunshots were shot within that distance. So their argument is that a tool effective at close range gives officers an alternative to lethal force in exactly those tense, up-close moments. Whether that logic holds in practice is part of what critics are questioning. But that's the company's pitch.
Is there any training required before an officer can use one?
Yes, and the manufacturer is specific about this. Officers have to complete a certification course before using the gloves. And they must undergo recertification every 2 years, so it's not something an agent can simply pick up and switch on. The company clearly wants a paper trail of trained users. Of course, the training requirement and real-world use don't always line up.
You mentioned the maker sets limits. What are they warning against?
Compliant Technologies has issued some pointed warnings. The gloves should not be used as a form of punishment. They shouldn't be used against people who are merely, quote, verbally defiant or belligerent, end quote. And they shouldn't be used on high-risk populations. That list specifically includes children, pregnant women, the elderly, or disabled persons. So the company is drawing some clear lines.
And yet, civil rights groups aren't reassured. What are they saying?
They're deeply alarmed, Grace. Jen Rolnick-Borchetta is Deputy Project Director on Policing at the ACLU. She told the Associated Press the public should have, quote, no confidence, end quote, that ICE officers will use these devices appropriately. Her core worry is that the shocks can be triggered with a nearly invisible push of a button. She called the tool a, quote, recipe for harm, end quote.
Why does she think it's so prone to misuse?
Borchetta pointed to ICE's history of excessive force. Her argument is that because the button is hidden and the mark on the skin may be minimal, there's little to deter improper use and little evidence afterward. So even with the manufacturer's guidelines in place, she doesn't trust that they'll be followed in the field. That gap between policy and practice is really the heart of her concern.
Let's zoom out. How does this fit into the bigger enforcement picture?
The gloves are part of a wider technological expansion supporting President Trump's mass deportation plan. As El País reports, that push includes license plate readers and vehicle tracking cameras. It also involves biometric apps for facial and fingerprint recognition. And there are digital forensic tools that can extract data from phones. So the gloves are one piece of a much broader surveillance and enforcement build-out.
This is all unfolding against some very serious incidents, isn't it?
It is, and that backdrop makes the controversy sharper. News Corp highlighted the death of 25-year-old Johann Sebastian Duran Guerrero in Maine. It also noted 52-year-old Lorenzo Salgado Araujo in Houston. On top of that, the deaths of American citizens Renee Good and Alex Preddy during protests against ICE raids in Minneapolis were noted. So these gloves are arriving amid real fatal encounters.
And who is actually in ICE detention right now?
This is a striking figure. Univision reported that 71% of people in ICE detention currently face no criminal charges. So critics argue that a majority of detainees aren't accused of crimes, which raises the stakes on any new pain-inflicting tool. It reframes the question, Grace. It's not just about violent suspects. It's about who these devices might actually be used on.
Where does the purchase stand right now? Is this a done deal?
Not quite, but it's moving. The procurement process involves a potential no-bid contract, and the solicitation could be published as early as Friday, August 15th, 2026. That's just 3 days from today. So we may know a lot more about the formal terms by the end of this week. It's advancing quickly through the pipeline.
Has DHS or the company said anything to explain all this?
Very little so far. When the Associated Press questioned DHS, the department said it was working on a response but offered no immediate comment. Jeff Nicholas, the CEO of Compliant Technologies, also declined to speak on the subject. So the two entities at the center of this story have stayed quiet, at least for now. That silence leaves a lot of open questions.
One of those questions is accountability. Will these uses be recorded?
That's still unclear, and it's an important gap. ICE recently released a body camera policy. It requires at least one member of an arrest team to wear a camera, but the agency has not yet specified whether using a GLOVE device will trigger mandatory recording. So we don't know if a shock delivered by these gloves would automatically be captured on video.
So a lot hinges on what we see later this week.
Exactly, Grace. If that solicitation drops on Friday, we'll get a clearer sense of the numbers, the timeline, and any conditions attached. Until then, the manufacturer's guidelines and the critics' warnings are really the two poles of this debate. It's a story about balancing officer safety against the risk of misuse. And that tension isn't going away.
Really important reporting. Ethan, thank you for breaking it all down for us this morning.
Happy to, Grace. We'll keep following it.
Our next story tonight comes out of California, where the state's highest court has just reshaped how justice works in the courtroom. It's about who gets an official record of their day in court. Our reporter Chloe has been following it. Chloe, good morning, and tell us what happened.
Good morning, Grace. So just 2 days ago, on August 10th, the California Supreme Court issued a unanimous ruling that's a really big deal for ordinary people. The justices said trial courts have to give poor litigants a way to create an official word-for-word record of their civil cases. And crucially, they said electronic recordings can be used when a certified court reporter isn't available. That effectively overturns a state law that had banned electronic recordings in most court cases.
So a recording device instead of a human stenographer. Why was that even banned in the first place?
That's the heart of it. For years, court reporter unions pushed to keep humans in that chair, and they persuaded the legislature to ban recordings in the vast majority of cases. But California has been dealing with a severe shortage of certified court reporters. According to reporting from CalMatters and AOL, the numbers are staggering. Data from the Judicial Branch of California shows that since 2023, more than 3 million proceedings have taken place with no written transcription at all.
3 million? Which kinds of cases are slipping through the cracks?
Well, felony criminal proceedings get first priority for a reporter, so those are usually covered. But almost all of California's major civil cases go without one. And more than half of all family law and probate cases have no reporter present. We're talking child custody and support, marital cases, domestic violence restraining orders, employment and housing discrimination, debt collection, and guardianship matters. These are the cases that touch people's everyday lives most directly.
And without a record, what does that actually mean for someone who loses their case?
It's a real trap, Grace. Chief Justice Patricia Guerrero said the shortage forces litigants into, quote, difficult choices, end quote. They can pay for a private reporter, which can run upwards of $3,000 per hearing. State General Services cite costs up to $1,600 a day, plus $13 per page for transcripts. Or they can delay their case for months waiting for a reporter, or just proceed with no record at all. And here's the kicker. You typically need a verbatim record to appeal a judge's decision, so no transcript means no appeal.
So the price of a transcript can decide whether you even get to appeal. Who actually brought this case to the court?
The ruling was prompted by an original petition from the Family Violence Appellate Project. That's a nonprofit that represents victims of domestic abuse. Their director of programs, Jennifer Wagner, said something that really stuck with me. She said as many as 15% of the cases she handles involving survivors of elder abuse, domestic abuse, or trafficking had no record whatsoever of the trial court proceedings. So imagine surviving something traumatic, going to court, and then being told there's simply no way to challenge the outcome.
That's a painful picture. How did the justices describe the problem in their own words?
Advocacy groups found the old ban created what they called a, quote, two-tiered, end quote, system of justice. Chief Justice Guerrero wrote that failing to give indigent litigants a verbatim record deprives them of, quote, meaningful access to the judicial process, end quote. In other words, if you could afford a private reporter, your case was protected. If you couldn't, you were essentially locked out of the appeals process. The court said that's not equal justice, and the Constitution doesn't allow it.
Now, you mentioned the unions pushed for that original ban. Were they fighting this change too?
Fiercely, yes. The opposition has come from court reporter unions, including the Service Employees International Union, the SEIU. And CalMatters notes these unions have real political muscle. They've donated at least $16.6 million to politicians' campaigns since 2016. They're the ones who convinced lawmakers to ban recordings in the first place. And back in 2023, they successfully killed a bill that would have expanded electronic recording in civil proceedings.
$16.6 million is serious influence. What's their actual argument against recordings?
Their concern is about quality and accountability. The Los Angeles County Court Reporters Association argued that electronic recordings are often poor quality, and they lack the professional certification and accountability that a trained human reporter brings. Shanna Gray, who's president of that association, said the ruling actually creates a, quote, double standard, end quote. In her view, wealthy litigants still get high-quality certified transcripts, while low-income litigants are stuck relying on recordings that could be inaccurate. So she flips the fairness argument around.
That's an interesting twist. How do the supporters of the ruling respond to that?
Legal experts push back pretty hard. David A. Carrillo, from Berkeley Law's California Constitution Center, argued that electronic recording is a vital alternative so that justice isn't, as he put it, a, quote, one-shot deal, end quote. And Chief Justice Guerrero echoed that directly. She said a verbatim record created by electronic means is, quote, better than no record at all, end quote. She also pointed out that federal courts and other states already use this kind of technology every day, so the idea that recordings are somehow untested just doesn't hold up.
So who exactly qualifies for these electronic recordings under the new rule?
The court was careful here. It said it's not applying an absolute standard of indigency, end quote. So any litigant who genuinely can't afford a private reporter can apply to proceed in forma pauperis. That's the legal term for proceeding as a poor person. And it's how they'd qualify for an electronic recording. So it's not just for the very poorest. It's meant to catch that big middle group of people who simply can't drop $3,000 on a hearing.
Does this ruling let the courts off the hook for hiring actual reporters, though?
That's a fair worry, and even the critics raised it. Scott Cronland emphasized that superior courts should lift what he called, quote, de facto hiring freezes, end quote, and hire more human reporters. He pointed out that reporter schools currently have waiting lists, so there are people wanting to enter the profession. The ruling doesn't say stop hiring humans. It says give people a backup when no human is available. Both things can be true at once.
Are any courts actually trying to recruit more reporters right now?
Some are throwing real money at it. CalMatters reports that the Los Angeles Superior Court has offered $50,000 signing bonuses and even $25,000 finder's fees for bringing in new reporters. And yet, despite all that, the court still faced 92 vacancies as of the reporting period. So it shows you how deep the shortage really goes. You can offer big incentives and still not fill the seats fast enough.
So what happens next, and when will people actually see this take effect?
The California Supreme Court is expected to issue a formal order to the state's superior courts telling them to comply with this ruling. And that's supposed to come within 30 days. So counting from the 10th, courts across California should be getting their marching orders sometime in the next few weeks. After that, we'll start to see how quickly individual courthouses set up the recording systems and process those in forma pauperis applications.
And big picture, Chloe, how much could this change day-to-day life for Californians?
Potentially a lot, Grace. Remember, we're talking about more than 3 million proceedings since 2023 with no record. Going forward, someone fighting for custody of their child or trying to keep their housing or seeking a restraining order will have a path to an official record even if a stenographer never shows up. That means they can appeal if a judge gets it wrong. The debate over quality isn't over, and the unions will keep pressing their case. But for now, the court has decided that some record beats no record.
A ruling that could reshape access to justice for millions. Chloe, thank you so much for walking us through it.
My pleasure, Grace.
Here are some other headlines. Turning to international news, a Damascus court has delivered a crushing blow to former Syrian President Bashar Assad. On Tuesday, August 12, 2026, Assad was sentenced to death in absentia for war crimes and crimes against humanity during a 14-year civil war. The charges were truly grave, including premeditated murder, the killing of children under 15, torture, and unlawful deprivation of liberty. The court didn't stop there, handing down death sentences to his brother Maher Assad, former Defense Minister Fahd al-Fraj, and 6 other officials. Atef Najib was actually present in the courtroom to receive his death sentence. This ruling marks the first of its kind since Assad was ousted in December 2024 and fled to Moscow after a lightning offensive. In health news, Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is injecting new life into autism research. He announced that 5 of 13 NIH research awards will investigate if vaccines play a role in autism. He also teased a major new ARPA-H initiative coming next month to dive deeper into the biology and diagnostics of the condition. Meanwhile, President Trump stirred the pot by claiming combined MMR vaccines could be lethal if not given separately, though doctors say separate shots aren't even available in the states. The president also claimed children are getting vats of vaccine the size of soda bottles, but experts say a typical dose is a mere 0.1 to 0.3 milliliters. Talk about a massive stretch of the truth. Moving to the tech world, the social media giants are finding themselves in a digital deadlock. The Ninth Circuit Court ruled on Monday, August 11th, that Meta, TikTok, Google, and Snap cannot immediately appeal a lower court decision. This clears the way for over 3,000 lawsuits regarding youth safety and addiction to proceed. In New Mexico, Meta is feeling the pinch, ordered to pay an additional $567 million, bringing their state total to over $942 million. Plus, a trial featuring attorneys general from 4 states begins jury selection this Wednesday in Oakland. This follows a March verdict where a jury found Meta and YouTube liable for a teen's addiction, awarding $6 million. In political primaries, the results are a mixed bag. In Wisconsin, David Crowley won the Democratic gubernatorial nomination. Up in Minnesota, Peggy Flanagan secured the Democratic Senate nomination, while former broadcaster Michelle Tafoya won the GOP side. Down in South Carolina, Senator Darlene Graham and Representative Ralph Norman are heading to a runoff on August 25th. Finally, tragedy in Colombia, where the death toll from a recent quake has risen to 181. A magnitude 5.0 aftershock followed the initial hit. Global Empowerment Mission is coordinating relief, with CEO Michael Capone flying in today. Doral Mayor Christy Fraga is urging people to donate cash rather than goods to keep costs low. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King with Claude Opus 4.8, Gemini Pro 3.1, Gemini Flash 3, and Google Cloud Text-to-Speech. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.